Alright folks, let's see what we got lined up for Kratos today on his agenda. Let's see, we gotta stop the Basilisk, kill some Persians, have a hot threesome, and put the sun back in the sky? This is gonna be a long day. God of War, Chains of Olympus. Now the story of Chains of Olympus takes place during the 10-year struggle of Kratos' servitude to the Olympian gods while he is trying to rid himself of the nightmares and memories of his past. And during the course of this particular venture, we find him during a siege of Attica invaded by the Persians, and of course he is tasked by the gods to stop the Persians and the basilisks that are terrorizing the city. However, that siege is the least of Kratos' worries, as soon afterwards he finds out that Helios, the sun god, has been ripped from the sky in his chariot as well, and has to basically put that back into place before the entire world succumbs to the grip of Morpheus, the god of dreams, and all of Olympus and the world falls into an eternal slumber. Now, if you saw my God of War Ascension review, you knew that I wasn't exactly too fond of the game overall. I could pretty much say that you could skip Ascension all the way through it and pretty much have no consequence on the rest of the plot. This, however, I would full-heartedly support that says if you're going to play the series in chronological order or the series at all, this is a more worthwhile entry to take a look at and start off if you're going to play through the series. Specifically because Kratos' story in Chains of Olympus and more so in Ghost of Sparta is better, I would argue in some ways, to maybe one or two in some regards, because of one key factor, and that's the story that it's trying to tell and the effect that it has on Kratos is a little bit more personal, if that makes any sense. Yes, it is true that he is trying to rid the memories of his past because of his sins, what he's committed and what he's done. However, the effect that the story has on him and what he has to sacrifice is a little bit more personal than what he's had to do before in his servitude to the gods. The gameplay for God of War is still as solid as ever. I mean, by the time that Chains of Olympus that came out, we pretty much had 1 and 2 to deal with by this point, and pretty much all of them had solid gameplay overall. Even Ascension to some degree had some solid gameplay. However, with the case of Chains of Olympus, it just overall feels much better. It feels a lot smoother. It feels a lot more responsive. It actually has weapons in it that you actually remember are a lot more fun, such as the Gauntlet of Zeus, which in basically terms is just a giant golden fist that shoots thunder and lightning. I mean, how the heck could you not enjoy something like that? Or the Effort, which is basically a giant flaming hellspawn demon that you get from the Persian king, and basically just smashes its fist into the ground and basically rains hellfire on everyone around you. Yeah, basically saying the weapons and magic in this game are a lot better than they were in Ascension. Not to mention the certain boss battles and sequences they have in the story and the gameplay are much better in terms of how they seamlessly integrate with each other. Not only that, but going back to the story has actual consequences and relevance throughout the series. In fact, there are sequences within Chains of Olympus that are referenced later in God of War 2. This is exactly how you would make a prequel. You manage to fill in gaps and fill in holes that were left from the previous installments that were made and manage to make it a way that it makes sense for the storyline, but it also makes it interesting. This is how you do a successful prequel, and I would say it's probably one of the better prequels I've ever seen. Also, it has probably one of the best integrations of story and gameplay used together. And here's what I mean. A lot of people try to make the argument that you should tell your story through the gameplay. And to be perfectly honest, that's not a philosophy I disagree with. That can be very effective. And Chains of Olympus, while it does have a small moment in here that is very gameplay centric, it also helps tell a story, and one that has you, the player, be personally involved in it. I can't explain what that is, unfortunately, because of spoilers, but I would definitely recommend it, and the ending is very satisfying. Everything about the score and presentation works. Now, I will admit, it is a PSP game that was upscaled to the PS3. That being said, though, it looked really good on the hardware that it was originally designed for, and even upscaled to HD visuals, it still looks really good. It still holds up relatively well. Sure, it's not going to be something on the level of like Crysis, The Witcher 3, or Uncharted, but for the fact that it looks as old as it does, and it still plays as well, and it still looks relatively good, then it says like, hey, this still looks relatively decent. So with all this praise I've been giving Chains of Olympus, there must be nothing wrong with this game, right? Unfortunately, there's one small problem, and that's its story. Now, I did mention earlier that the story is actually good. It's a lot more personal, it's a lot more involved with Kratos, and it actually does have gameplay elements that help tell the story. However, I can't fully endorse the story 100% because of one issue that happens during the course of this, and that's a continuity issue. As you can tell, continuity is a little bit of a thing with me, and I understand that this is a very, 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 very small thing within the course of the storyline overall. But it's something that I can't ignore. If I'm going to look at this on an objective level, knowing that this is a prequel, and the fact that this was made after 2 games that had its story set up and pretty much planned for them, the fact that they were able to reference other things within the storyline and managed to make it work, the fact that they had this element is somewhat up for debate. And I can understand if people disagree with me on this and that's saying it's not an issue. I'm fine with that. But the problem is that they had this story element presented, and that causes a little bit of a problem. And I can't reveal, unfortunately, what that is, but let me basically involve something like this. In the first God of War game, Kratos is basically stunned by the ability that you can kill a god at all. But that idea is explored a little bit in Chains of Olympus. It's brought up to some degree within Chains of Olympus. I can't explain how, why, or what the context is of that plot, but if you play Chains of Olympus and you've played the storyline, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It comes off as something that says, okay, how did you not think this through? How did you not integrate this idea or something of this plot element and basically try to work it in better and make it more seamless into the first God of War game? Either way, it's a small instance. Overall, the game itself is really good. But if I'm going to be brutally honest with myself, that's going to be something that's really nitpicky. If I'm going to just spend time harping on this one little thing, despite the fact that I found this game overall satisfying, way more so than Ascension, it has way more consequences, it works itself much better, it does, than throughout the rest of the series than Ascension ever did. And it stands well on its own despite the fact that it's been out for quite some time. I'm going to have to say that God of War Chains of Olympus really is worth playing, but not perfect. It's definitely worth a go. So with that in mind, I hope you guys enjoyed my God of War Chains of Olympus review. Stay tuned to when I review the original God of War pretty soon, and I'm going to have my review of Mr. Holmes out pretty soon. I think maybe tomorrow or the day afterwards, depending on my schedule. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed my God of War Chains of Olympus review. Until next time, I'm Perry the Wonder Legend, and I will see you later.